Hey, Coach Reeves here, and today I'm going to show you about domain and range. Domain and range is going to be a tougher thing. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples. I'm going to work probably 8 problems because there's so many different situations that could pop up, and still after working 8 problems, you're going to have, hey, what about this situation? That's where you need to email your teacher if you're not sure, something comes up. Make sure you ask questions, because even after 8 examples, there's going to be a problem that shows up, and you're not going to be sure how to do it, and it's okay. But we can't do every single problem, every single situation. Just when you come to a problem you're not sure, just ask. We'll help you. All right. We're going to spend 2 days on this, but here comes the lesson. First thing they're going to ask, we're going to talk about, is this a function? Yes or no? Do you remember the vertical line test? If you draw a vertical line and it touches the graph in more than one spot, it is not a function. And so I touched right here on these 2 spots, so we would say no, this is not a function. Now, we're going to show you how to write domain and range in 2 ways. We're going to talk to you about an inequality. We're also going to talk to something new about interval notation. But when you have just points that are plotted, it's like the worksheet we did the other day when you just have ordered pairs, and it's the x values for the domain, it's the y values for the range. So watch this. I'm going to be at 1, 2, 3, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at negative 3, negative 4. I'm going to be at 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to be at negative 2, positive 5. I'm going to be at 1, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be at 1, 1, 2, so it's going to be a 1, negative 2. And then I'm going to be out here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 0. To find my domain is going to be my x values. It's your x values. So I'm looking here, 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 and here. I'm going to ask you to list the x values smallest to biggest. Do not repeat a value if it happens. You don't have to repeat the 1 here. But my smallest x is negative 3, negative 2, 1, and 4. I did not have to repeat the 1. You don't have to repeat it. It's in the set. As far as my range goes, my range will be my y values. My range will be my y values. And we're going to go, the smallest y is going to be negative 4. Then it's going to be negative 2. And then we're going to look at it and we're going to have 0. And then we're going to have a 3 and then a 5. That's your domain and range when you have ordered pairs, when you just have points that are plotted. Now the rest of the worksheet, I'm going to show you domain and range as an inequality and in interval notation. But in this situation with only points plotted, you can't have it as an inequality. You cannot have interval notation. There's no way to do it, okay? All right, let's look at the next example. I'm going to be on problem number 2. Look at problem number 2. Is it a function? Well, if I draw a vertical line, I would touch 2 times. I would touch 2 times. That makes it not a function. When you draw your vertical line and it touches more than 1 time, it is not a function. So we would say, no, it's not a function. All right. Now I'm going to teach you about interval notation. I think this is one of the easier notations, but you make your own choice about this, okay? The left edge, when we talk about domain, we talk about how far it goes to the left and how far it goes to the right, and we talk about our x values because the x-axis goes to the left, the x-axis goes to the right. So domain is your x values. Are there any restrictions of how far you go left and how far you go right? Okay? My left edge, the left edge of my graph is at 1, 2, I'm at -3 on the left edge. My right edge is going to be at 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be at a +3. But the question is, do I have a point that actually touches that line? Yes. This dot, this picture also, it actually touches right here. I touch that line at the edge. I actually make contact right here also. So what happens is when you touch it, you consider this making contact, and you would say my domain touches. This is what we call a hard bracket, and it means it makes contact with the line. I made contact with the line, so we're going to use a hard bracket. We're going to put a comma. Over here, we make contact with this line at 3. So I would close it with a hard bracket. That is my domain in interval notation. If I go my range in interval notation, I'm going to look here. I'm going to look at the bottom edge. I make contact with that line. I am at 1, 2, 3, 4. I am at -4. 1, 2, 3. I make contact right here, and I am at a +3. So my range, and we usually go smallest to biggest. You don't have to, but we prefer it that way. I made contact at -4, so it gets a hard bracket. I made contact at a 3, so it gets a hard bracket. That would be your range for this graph. Now the easy part is to convert this to an inequality. If we're going to convert this to an inequality, my domain would be from -3 less than or equal to, because we actually have a hard bracket and we have made contact, we've touched that line, x, because we're talking about domain, less than or equal to, because we made contact with this line and we have a hard bracket, so you get the bottom, or equal to a +3. This is going to be as an inequality. That's your domain as an inequality. My range, very similar. I'm going to use the -4 less than or equal to, because we make contact, we touch this actual line at -4. The range is the y values, less than or equal to, because we make contact right up here, the number 3. This would be domain and range in interval notation and as an inequality. Now I'm going to do 6 more examples. So hopefully you're going to start to understand, because probably just looking at this, it's a little confusing. But let's keep going, and then if you have the questions, please email me or email your teachers, and when you get to the Zoom, say, I don't understand, where is that coming from? But don't panic, take a deep breath, and let's do some more examples and see if it gets any better, okay? All right, if I draw a vertical line, I would not touch my graph more than 1 time. If you draw a vertical line, you would only touch the graph 1 time. And that means, is it a function? And you would say, yes, it is a function. Now, as far as your domain goes, remember domain's going left and right. So the left edge, look at the left edge. The left edge has what we have, it's called an open circle. An open circle means do not include. It goes up into that point, but the open circle means do not include. It does not actually touch that line, okay? So we're going to say I am at -1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at -4. I'm at -4, but I have an open circle, so I actually do not touch. So we get what's called a soft bracket. Not the hard squared off where you make contact, or if you had a closed circle, but since you have an open circle, you're going to use a soft bracket. And we're going to travel all the way around and look at my right edge. Look at the right edge. It has an arrow, so it's going to go forever. It's going to continue to go forever this way. Now, when we can go forever and we never stop, we use the symbol or the term infinity. That's the infinity symbol because it's going to go forever, ever to the right. So we started at -4 and we went forever and we went forever to the right and we use infinity. And infinity always gets a soft bracket. Okay? Because we don't have a firm ending point. So it gets a soft bracket. That would be your domain in interval notation. My domain as an inequality. Well, what's happening? I am here and am I getting bigger? I'm going this way forever. I started at -4 and I went this way and my numbers get bigger. So you say my x values are going to be bigger than or, no, not or equal to. We cannot put this here because we have an open circle. We do not touch it. So we're not allowed to put this bar here because that means you get to touch or make contact with that line. So do not put the bar underneath here. But my x values started at -4 and they got bigger. And that's how you would write it as an inequality. X is bigger than or greater than -4. Now, let's go ahead and finish this out. My range. We're here, right here at a 1. And then we go up. Where? Do we stop right here? Do we stop right here or do we keep going up forever? Look at this. This arrow is pointing up and it means we continue to keep going higher and higher and higher. This guy says to keep going and going and going. Even though you have a circle here, this part of the graph says to keep going higher and higher. That means we're going to go up forever. We're going to go up for infinity. So what does my range say? I actually make contact. I make contact at 1, so I get a hard bracket because I actually touch this line. My graph touches that line. So we touch at 1. How high do I go? I do not stop here. I keep going up, so you would say I go up to infinity. That would be my range at interval notation. How do you do it as an inequality? Well, my inequality says I'm going to be here and I'm going to go up forever. So I'm going to say my y values, I make contact, I get to touch it, so I put a bar underneath there because I've actually touched that line right here. And then I go up forever, so y is greater than what? 1. I'm at 1 and my y's get bigger. They keep going bigger. Okay? That's example number 3. We have some more. I understand you're going to have some questions, but we're going to keep going, okay? If I just a regular line, if I drew a vertical line, if I drew any kind of a vertical line, it would only touch 1 time. this would be a function, because when we draw the vertical line, it would only touch one time. Okay? Now, as far as my domain goes, how far to the left does it go? Even if it's at an angle, my graph is going to continue to keep going left, further to the left. And I go this way forever. I go this way forever, so we say we're going to go infinity. But what kind of numbers go to the left? Negative numbers. So my domain says I will go from negative infinity, and then even though it's at an angle, I will continue to go to the right infinity. That's positive infinity. So we're going to go from negative infinity to positive infinity. That would be my domain. Now, if you wanted to write it as an inequality, you really can't. There is not an inequality. So sometimes we'll say, instead of an inequality, we would say just all real numbers. Or sometimes we could use a symbol that looks like a little bit Rolls-Royce symbol. We could say that's the symbol for all real numbers. Okay? My range on this problem. Range, remember, range tells you how high and how low you go. This graph, it's at an angle, but it's going to continue going down. Even though it's at an angle, it's going to continue to go down at an angle. It's going lower and lower and lower. And so that would be infinity. But what kind of numbers go down? Negative numbers go down. So we're going to go from negative infinity, and then we're going to go up. We're going to go, even though it's at an angle, we're going to go up forever, and that would be positive infinity. So again, we're going to go from negative infinity to positive infinity. And then we would say all real numbers, or we could use the symbol, whatever your teacher asks you to use. Okay? Next example. If I draw a vertical line, anywhere, it would only touch one time. So since it only touches one time, I would say yes, this is a function. Now, on your domain goes left and right. How far to the left does my graph go? Even though it's at an angle, it's going to go forever to the left. And since it's a negative, because it's going this way to the left on our number line, so we would say negative infinity. Even though it's at an angle, how far to the right will I go? Positive infinity. It's going forever to the right. And again, in this situation, we could say all real numbers, or we could use this symbol. As far as range goes, range talks about how high you go and how low you go. Well, I'm right here. I'm at negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I make contact. I touch here at negative 5. That's the lowest point of my graph. That's how low I go. So since I make contact, that's a hard bracket because I make contact with that line. And I make contact at negative 5. The question is, how high do I go? Well, even though it's at an angle, I go up forever. We go up forever. So we go from negative 5 to positive infinity. Infinity always gets a soft bracket. As an inequality, this one's a little different. As an inequality, I'm at negative 5, and my y values my y values go up forever. So you would tell me that y is going to be greater than or equal to, because you make contact with the line, or equal to -5. Okay? Keep going. Going to another problem. If I draw a vertical line, I would touch here and I would touch there. I would touch 2 times. And if you draw a vertical line and you touch more than 1 time, it's not a function. So I would say, no, this is not a function. All right, so we're going to talk about our domain. Domain is going left and right. The furthest left I go, I am right here at 0. I do not go any further left. And I do make contact. I make contact with that line. So since I touch that line, I get to call it a hard bracket. And I make contact at 0. How far to the right do I go? How far to the right do we go? We go forever, which is infinity. Positive infinity. There's my domain in interval notation. So we're talking about our x values, and my x values are getting bigger, so you would say my x's are greater than or equal to, because you make contact with that line, 0. X is greater than or equal to 0. My range talks about how high and how low you go. Well, even though it's at a slight curve, it keeps going up. It's a slow curve, but it's going to continue to get higher and higher and higher. So we're going to go up to infinity. How far down are we going to go? Even though it's at a slow curve, we're going to slowly get lower and lower, and we're going down to negative infinity. So we're going to say that we're at negative infinity. Remember, anything infinity always gets a soft bracket, and we're going to go all the way up to a positive infinity. So that means I go forever down and I go forever up. So what do we say? That could be all real numbers, or we could use the symbol. Again, it's whatever your teacher lets you use. Okay? All right, one more. Okay, this one's going to be a little tricky. You need to stay with me on this. But you see this dot right here, and you see this dot right here. If I draw a vertical line, I would touch my graph twice. And if you touch the graph more than once, not a function. So we would say, no, it is not a function. But I go from here, look what I am. I am at -1, and this solid, this is a closed circle. It's a closed circle. That means you get to touch that line. I get to touch here at -1. I have another closed circle here at -1, and I go this way forever. So I'm at -1 and go to the left forever. I'm at -1 and go to the right forever. There is not any kind of gap. Even though there's one a little bit higher than the other one, there's no gap. They're right on top of each other. We go left forever to the right forever. So this means I'm going to go to the left, which is negative infinity forever. This means I'm going to go to the right forever, which is a positive infinity. So my domain would be negative infinity to positive infinity, which is also all real numbers. Either way you want to look at it, okay? This is the tricky part. Watch the range. This is going to bother you, but stay with me. Range talks about how high I go and how low I go. I am right here on this line. I don't go any higher. I don't go any lower. I am stuck right there on this line. I am stuck right there. Where is this line? This line is right here at 1. This is at y equals 1. I don't creep up and go to 2. I don't creep down and go to 0 or in the negatives. My y value, no matter where you pick on this, my y value is 1. So when you have a horizontal line like this, you would come over here and say, I'm at 1. Or I could be right here. Where is this line? 1, 2, 3. Y equals 3. I'm either going to be right here at 1, or I'm going to be right here at 3. That's how high I go. I'm either stuck on this line at 1, or I'm stuck on this line at 3, but nowhere else. Those are my only two options for my range, for my y values. That's all I get. And I cannot write that in interval notation. I cannot write that as an inequality. Those are my only two choices. That's all I get. That would be your domain and range. I know you're going to have some questions, and it's a head scratcher. Going, what? I understand. But this is what it is. Okay? I got one more example. Hopefully we can help each other. Okay. I have an arrow. I have an open circle. I have an open circle. Let's try to see if it's a function though. If I draw a vertical line, it would not touch more than once. So this is a yes. This is a function. Okay? Now this is the trickiest one we're going to do. It's the last one, but it's the hardest one. Stay with me, all right? How far to the left? How far to the left do I go? I go forever to the left because I have an arrow. I am going forever to the left. I will be at negative infinity. And so I'm traveling, and I get to this point. I am at -1, -2, -3, and I have an open circle. The open circle means do not include this point or this number, okay? So I'm going to travel to 3, to -3, but I have an open circle right here, which means I'm going to have a gap. It means no touch. That soft bracket means no touch of the line. Open circle, you have a hole. Now I'm going to put a U here because I have to hold together. I have a union for the gap, and then I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue on until I get to this hole. Where is this hole located? This hole is located at 2. So I'm going to go from -3. I'm at -3 right here, and I travel until I get to the number 2. This is an open circle. Open circle means do not touch. So you get another soft bracket. There are no hard brackets, okay? Because you have negative infinity, you have an open circle, and you have an open circle. I know you're confused. We're going to do some more problems because we're going to spend 2 days on this, but this is the way it's broken up, okay? Take a deep breath. Write down, jot down your questions, get to your teacher, ask questions in the Zoom, okay? How do you write this as an inequality? As an inequality, you would tell me that my x values, we're talking about my x values. My x values from right here, look at this. My x values are going to be less than, but no bar, open circle, you do not put a bar underneath here. We're going to be less than -3. Or, this union means, or, we're going to go from -3 to a +2. We're going to go from -3 to a +2. Notice I didn't put a bar under either one of those because they're open circles. This is how you would write your domain in interval notation and as an inequality. Yes, this is a tough problem. All right, let's talk about range. On this problem, range is a little easier. Okay, I'm going to put the range down here. Range talks about how high and how low we go. Okay, I don't go any lower. That is the lowest point of my graph. I am at -1 and we are at -2. That's the low point of my graph. How high do I go? Look, I keep going up forever. And that would be infinity. Even though there's an open circle over here, I make contact with the line right here. So I make contact with that line at any point. I get to use a hard bracket. Even though there's an open circle here, I make contact with the line right here, so it counts as a hard bracket of making contact. So I'm at -2. How high do I go? Well, this side stops, but this guy gets to keep going, and he goes up to infinity. So even though one side may stop, if any part keeps going, then you go with the part that keeps going, and that will be infinity. How would I write this as an inequality? Well, we're talking about our y values on a range, and the lowest point is at -2. My y's are at -2, and then they go forever. So you would tell me that my y's are going to be greater than or equal to -2. There is your inequality. There is your interval notation. There's 8 examples, and I know you have a ton of questions. We have 2 pages of practice problems that we need you to try to do. I want you to try to do the evens. Only do the evens, but write them in domain and in interval notation. Write your domain in interval notation as an inequality, and your range in interval notation and as an inequality. Okay? Do the best you can. If you come to a problem you're not sure how to attempt or start, or you don't understand, if you don't think you're right, circle the problem, email your teacher, ask during the Zoom. It would be better if you asked before the Zoom, so when we go to the Zoom, we know what problem to pull up. We're ready to answer your question for you, and we can answer more questions more quickly. Okay? All right. So, yeah, domain and range is always a tough topic for us. Do the best you can, and then ask questions.